Welcome to the Institute for Strategic Policy Solutions. My name is Kimberly Jackson. I'm the Executive Director. For those of you all who don't know what the Institute is, it is a think tank that was created by Congressman Bill Young, a way to bring people together and for people to understand the appropriate scope of government. Congressman Young wanted to have a nonpartisan space for social, political, and economic discussions, and most importantly, to have solutions created by people in the community like you, people from nonprofits, from for-profits, from government entities, and from just individuals who care about having a stronger village. I'm honored today to have this program that is really passionate for me in particular, but also to this community at large. About a year ago, we had a fundraiser where we had a lot of people come out to say, we want to understand autism spectrum disorder. It was a very successful event, and the goal of the event was to educate the community, particularly St. Petersburg College, where we have a dynamic college of education program, to partner with community liaisons and allies in the community, doctors, physicians, and parents, and those who just care about the subject matter. I want to take time to particularly thank Johns Hopkins and their team who graciously allowed us to have their space and giving us some of their expertise for today. I'm honored to start with our presentations now and introduce our dynamic panel. We first have Dr. Gardner. I believe she's first on it. Dr. Gardner is special to SBC because she's already presented before some of our team. She's going to talk a little bit about who she is when she comes up. But we have a police program where our police officers have to engage with the public. And she was gracious enough to come to our college to do a training with them about how they could better support those with cognitive differences. And then we have Dr. Sue Blanchard, who will not be here, but will have some of her video presentation. And Dr. Sue Blanchard is an emeritus professor at St. Petersburg College. She is the person who actually created the disability policies at St. Petersburg College. Can we toggle to her screen? Thanks. She created the disability policies at St. Petersburg College. She also created the autism program certification at St. Petersburg College, and she has contributed significantly to this program. Then we have Ms. Villamy. I hope I'm saying your name right. She is from McDonald Transition Services, and she'll be talking a little bit about the services that they offer. And finally, we'll end with Kelly Mondello, who is a parent and a passionate organizer and entrepreneur like myself, who believes in gifting everyone with the understanding that everyone belongs. And so we'll go through that. If you'll toggle back to our first speaker, Dr. Gardner, I'm going to have her take it away with her presentations. You'll next see our presentation video with Dr. Blanchard, followed by Ms. Villamy, and then followed by Ms. Mondello. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. So I'm here today to talk to you about diagnosing autism spectrum disorders. Part of my job here is training law enforcement and first responders in recognizing autism when they're responding to crisis calls. But a larger part of my job is I am the director of the autism program here at the hospital. So a lot of my time is spent providing clinical services to children and families who are impacted by autism. And a lot of that has to do with raising awareness and also providing diagnostic evaluations so they're able to get access to the services that they need. So as a lot of you in this room are probably aware, the pediatric population has developmental concerns, and it's not particularly uncommon for kids to present with developmental concerns. So approximately 15% of the pediatric population does have developmental concerns. And these concerns can range from milder disabilities, things like speech language impairments, to more serious developmental disabilities like autism, intellectual disability, cerebral palsy. And so when we're trying to determine the rates of autism within our current community, we defer to the CDC and other organizations that look for those prevalence rates. This information is also included in your folder. I have a couple of handouts for you that talk about the current prevalence rates for diagnosis of autism. But when we're looking at 4-year-olds, 1 in 64 4-year-olds have an autism diagnosis. By the time kids are 8 years old, 1 in 44 has a diagnosis of autism. It's 4 to 5 more commonly diagnosed in boys than girls. And we know that this has continued to increase over time for approximately the past 20 years. So back in 2000, when we were first becoming really concerned about the rates of autism diagnosis, it was about 1 in 150 8-year-olds that were receiving that diagnosis. But like I said, the most recent updates from 2018 place that at 1 in 44. So it's really increased over time. It's becoming much more common that we're diagnosing kids and adults with autism. So we don't know the cause of autism. We don't know why there's this increase over time. I think in large part, a lot of it has to do with the fact that we have experts who are available to accurately diagnose individuals who are on the spectrum, especially individuals without cognitive delays or deficits who are presenting with more subtle presentations of autism. And so it's likely that we are doing a better job of identifying autism, which also increases the prevalence rates that we see. But I do think that autism is more common than it used to be. So there's not a blood test or a brain scan that we can do that definitively tells us that someone has autism, but we know there are certain risk factors that make you more likely to receive a diagnosis. So we do know that there are certain genetic factors and genes that impact whether or not a person's diagnosed with autism. If you have one child with autism, you're much more likely to have another child with autism. It happens more frequently in children who have certain genetic or chromosomal conditions. Prenatal exposure to certain prescription drugs has also been linked to having a higher risk of autism. Children who are born to older parents have a higher risk for autism. And then there's a small percentage of children who are born prematurely or with low birth weight that can also increase your risk of being diagnosed with autism as well. So since there's not a blood test or a brain scan we can do to determine if someone's on the spectrum, how do we diagnose autism? And really, it's based on the presence of certain behaviors and the absence of others. So we're really looking for someone who has deficits in social communication and social interaction skills across multiple contexts. And then we're also looking for the presence of those restricted repetitive patterns of behaviors, interests, or activities. And in the diagnostic criteria, we have examples that we use as clinicians to diagnose, but they're not exhaustive. So when we're meeting someone on the spectrum, when you meet one person on the spectrum, you've met one person on the spectrum. And the way that autism impacts each individual can be very different from one person to the next. We do know that symptoms have to be present in early childhood. So it used to be that in the criteria they designated it had to be present before age 3. Now we know with more subtle presentations, it may not become apparent until much older, but when you're talking to caregivers and the individual, generally there were delays that were in place when they were in early childhood. It's not something that would suddenly come to be later on in life. It's something that it's neurodevelopmental. It's always been present in the person's life, although it may not have become more apparent until the demands outweighed their skill level. So a lot of diagnosing autism is reliant on the direct observations of behaviors. And that is contingent on professionals and parents and everyone understanding what those red flags are early on when we're looking to diagnose individuals with autism. Early on, a lot of parents struggle for answers when they're worried about their child having developmental delays or potentially autism. Those early signs can be subtle. Their child can have inconsistent skills. So they might have strengths in some areas. A lot of young parents will come and tell me that their kids know their letters, colors, numbers, shapes, but when it comes to playing interactively with other kids or playing functionally with toys, they're really struggling in those areas. There can be a regression with some children. It used to be thought to be much more common that there was a regression in individuals with autism. We now know that it's more like a third of kids show a regression. So that's not the rule, that kids get language and then lose it, or they have skills and lose them. Initially, parents often suspect that their child might have a hearing loss. They report that they were just really good as a baby, or just has language delays. And generally, they're going to their pediatrician for the first line of help. So they're checking in at a well check. They're mentioning that they have concerns. And from there, what hopefully is happening at their provider's office is that they're receiving a screener where we're trying to determine, is this beyond what we would expect to be for a delay for a kiddo of this age? And so this helps to differentiate patients who have more significant concerns from kids that are just within the realm of kind of that typical development window. And so those forms usually are including like the MCHAT that they'll get at their pediatrician's office. They could use the social communication questionnaire, the PDDST, or the SRS. These are pretty typical autism screeners. And when a child flags on those screeners, the hope is then that they would be referred to receive a comprehensive diagnostic evaluation. And so during surveillance and screening, if concerns are raised, then ideally these kids are getting sent to someone who can provide a comprehensive evaluation, which we would call a gold standard diagnostic evaluation for autism. And what that involves is really a caregiver interview and questionnaires that they'll complete at that office as well. I might be a childhood development expert, and I might be someone who specializes in autism, that I am not an expert in someone's child. And so I need their expertise and knowledge to truly understand what their concerns are, how their child's developing, and how we can help and support to make sure that they get the services that they need. In addition to that, I need to administer empirically sound diagnostic instruments, because it's not enough just that my clinical opinion is one thing or another. I need the data to support where the child's development's at, and then how we can individualize treatment to make sure they're getting their needs met. And so that should include a standardized assessment of their intellectual functioning, a speech language assessment, an adaptive behavior assessment to determine those everyday living skills where they may need support, and then autism-specific diagnostic tools. And ideally, it's done by an interdisciplinary team so that you have different professionals who can all come together, spend a decent amount of time with the family and the child, getting to know them and getting to see them in different contexts so we can really appreciate their unique strengths and weaknesses. Now, to get access to that type of a comprehensive diagnostic evaluation here in our area, we do have the autism program here, and I gave you guys information about the different clinics that we offer for interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary evaluation. And then for older kids, we generally do a psychology evaluation because it does take a complete day once you're older to really get through doing that gold standard evaluation, in which case then we would be coordinating with different disciplines to make sure that we were getting that comprehensive picture. That gives you a medical diagnosis of autism that gets you access to insurance-based services that you need as far as things like ABA, speech language therapy, occupational therapy. Also, our team plugs you in with our developmental pediatrician so that you can be tracked for your development over time. But in addition to having that type of an evaluation, we encourage the families that we see to go through the school system to also get access to services through either early steps or the school system, depending on the kiddo's age. So we want them to have access to insurance-based private services, but then we also want them to be plugged into early steps to make sure that they're getting their IFSP set up, and then after age 3 that they have an IEP if they need it to provide them with the supports that they need in an academic home as well. In addition to that, if you're looking for other resources or information about local providers that can provide a comprehensive diagnostic evaluation, CARD is a great resource center that can provide information for families about other centers or places that might do diagnostic evaluations or provide services. And they can also contact their insurance company to find out who's in network so that way they're hopefully able to get those evaluations covered through their insurance companies. So the data that I presented, as well as information about our autism program, is contained in the folders that are sitting at your seat. You'll also find a sticker in there that says autism lives here. I generally give those out to law enforcement and first responders so that they're able to give those to families that they meet when they're responding to calls to place on either a window for a car if they're approaching so that they're aware that someone with autism might be there, or the home. The only advice I give to you all is those are pretty permanent once you put them on. So I don't expect that to peel back off. That is meant to stay. So I look forward to questions and talking to everyone afterwards as the panel. But I will pass on now for Dr. Blanchard's video. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So a little bit more about Dr. Sue Blanchard could not be here today. Are you going to come up and do the video? She couldn't be here today, but she has been instrumental for St. Petersburg College in educating not just the faculty and staff and the community at St. Petersburg College, but educators that go into the Pinellas County school system. That's what she does. And so this was just a thank you. And again, a huge thank you to all the donors, some of whom are present, who contributed to allowing us to fund this and to give more resources to people like Dr. Gardner who do all this work.
What a privilege to have funding for this outreach to the community, to parents, to interested people. As Kim mentioned, I do teach online the autism courses that teachers need to get the endorsement added to their teaching certificate. Any teacher who has 100% of students in their classroom who are on the autism spectrum must have this endorsement. And we saw this coming ahead of time. And so we encouraged our teachers to help us create this program. And it has been running now for many years with good reviews. So we have this information. And part of what the students do is teach each other, because all of these students, well, most of these students are in-service teachers who are in an ASD classroom. Some parents, some grandparents, some community members. Let's take a minute and talk about those community members, because you see these children, and the CDC estimates in 2020, they estimated 1 out of every 54 children will be labeled with an autism label. So these children grow up and they become citizens, they become workers, they become employees, they become employers, they become part of our society. And so the work we're doing to train police officers, for example, how to deal with someone who has autism becomes really important, not just for school age, but for all citizens. Now, the repository, which is specifically what I'm working on, is going to house information that we've collected with student permission, because you see, I send them out to do a deep dive into specific areas that we study in these broad-based classes. And these students have come up with some fantastic work. And so with their permission, and I have all of their permissions, we will be putting this in a repository on the ISPS website. It's a subtopic. And then even under autism, we have some subtopics. So if a parent is dying for information, I have an IEP meeting, I don't know what they're talking about, we're going to have an IEP, a behavior, and for teachers, certain topics for them. And so I'm excited that this will be housed right there at ISPS, open to the public and serving a need that right now the public goes to the internet. Need I tell you about going to the internet? Okay, my latest is that don't give your baby Tylenol because it causes autism. Fingernails on the chalkboard is my reaction to that. So this will be a reputable source of information. A lot of the grant is also going to speakers, and Kim can tell you more about the speakers. It's hard to land good speakers, but if we get permissions to record them, that will also be in the repository to live on. So I'm very excited, and I thank the board for funding such a needed source of information in a field that is only going to become more and more important. We have too many people on the autism spectrum to just delegate them to staying home. We must work with them so that they can live in society and be taxpayers, not tax takers. So thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Bellamy, as you come up. I wanted to say on our website, which we'll show you later, all the hard work that she did over the past year is in one space. So we'll show you the website at the end, all of the work that she did with students over the years. So it's an added resource for you all. And our speakers are up there as well, including Dr. Gardner.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I'd like to thank the ISPS for having me here today and allowing me to come speak to you guys. I really appreciate that. So my name is Kaylin Villamy. I'm from McDonald Training Center. Just a tiny bit about us. We have 2 locations, one in Tampa on Cypress Street and one out towards Brandon, which we call our Sable location. Our mission is to empower people with disabilities to lead the lives that they choose. And so I'm here to talk to you mainly about best practices and how to transition at the end of high school after we're finished. I know a lot of this is for school and during high school and from elementary through high school. We have services for those who have completed high school and are ready to transition into the workforce or to meet whatever goal it is that they're trying to achieve. So to start with, we find that connecting with VR and with APD, the Agency for Persons with Disabilities, and VR Vocational Rehabilitation. I know I'm preaching to the choir here pretty much, but we find that a lot of parents aren't aware that they have these resources available to them. they'll come in for a tour or they'll call me up on the phone and ask for information, and they haven't applied for med waiver. They haven't connected with VR or APD. And sometimes they haven't even heard of these facilities and these resources that they can use for individuals. And so it's very important early on that the parents know about these things and they're able to connect with VR and with APD. So that leads us to the IEP versus an IPE. And you all know that the IEP, the Individualized Education Plan, are fully aware of that. But many don't know about the IPE, which is the Individualized Plan for Employment. It's a written plan outlining an individual's vocational goal. It's developed by the VR client no later than 90 days after the person's eligibility has been confirmed. It's signed as an agreement with VR about what you can expect from them and what to do to continue to receive support services from vocational rehabilitation. So that IP is an important transition tool to get from the end of high school to employment if that is the person's goal. So person-centered planning, which would be one of the next slides, is a good tool if you haven't heard of it. We call it's sometimes called MAPS or PATH. MAPS is making action plans, but we also call it person-centered planning. It is an ongoing problem-solving process used to help people with disabilities plan for their future. So if you could toggle to the, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you so much. So this is an example of a resource that we can use with our individuals who are finishing up with high school, who can plan out their future. So the purpose is to look at an individual in a different way and to assist the focus person in gaining control over their life, to increase opportunities for participation in the community, recognize individual desires, interests, and dreams. So it's a team effort. And the people who are involved in this plan are the focus person, the individual, the client, and whoever they would like can be involved. The planning is done at the focus person's home or somewhere comfortable, informal, and hospitable. It can take place any time in a person's life. It's best to be done before transition services are determined. It's a very useful tool to help their transition plan from high school to achieve their goal of either living on their own or employment. Flip chart, large piece of butcher paper on the wall, just ready to go and talk to this individual and sit with them and develop a history or personal life story for the focus person. Starting with their story, their dreams, even their nightmares, the things they're afraid of, and then what it takes, their goal, their contribution. So they're fully invested in this idea of their goal and their plan. It's successful if it's clear and shared and it's appreciation of the talents and capacities of that focus person, and that everyone involved has a common understanding of what the focus person wants. Okay, so there's an example. Thank you. Don't want to mess it up. We do good. Yes. So here's an example of a focus person-centered plan. This individual and just started out, just make it colorful, make it exciting, make it engaging. And then that person can follow this plan throughout and has a path, because oftentimes we run up against barriers of what these individuals are looking to do. So that's just an example. And then I think I understand now. Here's some recommended resources and books that can be used for those, for that resource. And I just wanted to mention a little more about MAPS. It used to be called formerly was called Making Action Plans, but we've abandoned those acronyms now. And it's really about listening to a person's dreams and their nightmares and building a portrait. It's a wonderful way to get to know someone in schools and in communities and in life. And the simple guideline is to do no harm, to just be there for that person and help guide them along that path. Okay, so All right. So I wanted to kind of end with some success stories that we have at McDonald Training Center. We have a partnership with Moffitt. We offer an environmental services program. There's a young man that went through this program. We'll call him Brian. And he came to us out of high school, really excited, really motivated, really looking for achieving his dreams. He went through our Moffitt class, and Moffitt, through our partnership, hired him on immediately and gave him a part-time job. He was so fabulous that he was then moved to full-time. He moved out of his grandparents' home with their blessing into his own apartment, and now lives on his own, transports himself on his own to work and back. And it was just one of many success stories that are just so fulfilling, because you see that person talk to you about their goal and their dream and what they want to do. And now he is like the superstar at Moffitt Cancer Center. So one of our many success stories, and it just leads us back to our mission of making sure we empower these people with disabilities to lead the lives that they choose. I would like to thank you all for having me here. If I do have some handouts, I do have this. If anyone's interested in taking this with you to kind of adjust it to suit your needs. I have pamphlets, my card, and if you're interested in more information or the question portion, I would be happy to help you out. So I appreciate you having me here. Thank you very much.
Well, good morning. Just a little bit. Thank you, Kimberly, for inviting me to participate today. My name is Kelly Mondello, and it's an honor to be included in this panel. My background is in speech-language pathology, but my proficiency in the space of autism really comes from practical experience, as I've raised a daughter, now 27, with autism, and because of her, started a school called LIFT for individuals with neurodiversity. So today, I'm really just going to share my journey and my perspective as an advocate and as a mom, and hopefully I can share some of the lessons I've learned along the way. But before I begin, I want to ask, has anybody here heard the poem Welcome to Holland by Emily Pearl Kingsley? A couple, okay. So I'm going to start there. I think it's a beautiful representation of raising a child with special health care needs. Kingsley herself has a child with Down syndrome. And in her poem and in her essay, she talks about preparing to have a child. And she compares it brilliantly to planning a dream vacation to Italy. She talks about every detail, the books you read, where you're going to go, where you're going to stay, what you're going to do when you get there, the enthusiasm, the excitement of planning this trip. And you're on the plane and you land and the pilot comes on and he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, we've taken a detour and we are in Holland and this is where you will stay." And you're frustrated and disappointed and sad because this is not where you wanted to go. You wanted to go to Italy, but you get off the plane and you start walking around and you notice the windmills and the tulips and all the magical beauty of Holland. And you eventually realize if you only focus on what you missed in Italy, you'll miss all the beautiful things about Holland. And in my updated version, I think you become so enamored with Holland that you sign up to be the resident tour guide. So I think that's what we're here today to do, is to become better tour guides for our own journey through Holland. So you're going to hear once in a while, I'll say a Holland moment. And to me, that's when the beauty and the blessing of neurodiversity and autism just smacks me right in the face. So for me, LIFT is my Holland moment. So I'm going to give you a Reader's Digest version of LIFT. But before I do that, I have to give you a Holland moment with my daughter. And I could fill the day with Holland moments with her, including her first trip to the gynecologist. But we will save that for another day. She hears me talk about LIFT all the time. And last time I was with a group, we're in the car, we get in the car, and she goes, why do you always say Reader's Digest version? And now she's 27. And so I'm thinking, oh, this is generational. I explained a Reader's Digest back before there was iPads and cell phones and Google. So I'm telling her everything's condensed. They're shortened articles, they're novels that are abridged and put into one book. And she's like, oh, and I'm thinking, okay, she's getting this. And she goes, but what does a book about digestion have to do with lift? So that is a Holland moment. And to me, that is lesson number one. Look for your Holland moments and celebrate them. So now back to lift and how it came to be. So my husband, Mark, and I had tried a number of academic settings for Morgan. We tried public school, we had tried a charter school, and we ended up in a private school with a really strong special ed program. The reason that the other two academic environments did not work for Morgan was because they didn't provide one of two things, or they didn't provide either of them. And that was appropriate accommodations for her needs and expectations placed upon her. So we get to this private school, and the reason it was such a strong program was because of the director of the program. And her name is Kim Karusevich. And she would become a game changer in my life, in Morgan's life, and eventually the community, because she is my co-founder of Lyft. So Morgan's there for about 5 years. And if you know the saying, you are only as happy as your saddest child, we were all happy at the Mondello household. Morgan was doing good. She was thriving academically, socially, emotionally. And then Kim comes to me one day over the summer, and she says, there's some things that in the leadership or in the administration that are not aligned with my values, and I'm going to leave the school and I'm going to homeschool Gina. And Gina is her daughter. Morgan and Gina like to call themselves the OGs of Lyft. So I said, you cannot go. My daughter is doing exceptional. You cannot leave. And eventually she told me this is happening. So she told me that she had talked to a few other families, and much like we felt, we were going to follow her. I said, let's get together and let's talk about what does this look like? What does this homeschool school look like? So we met on September 10th of 2012, and we met at the Old Northeast Tavern. Any of you are in downtown St. Pete, you may know it. And over wine and truly over a dinner napkin, we sat and looked at what could we build? What could we make? And we were looking for solutions for our own daughters. So the more wine we drank, I think the bigger the vision got. But fast forward 4 months, and by the grace of God, and I do mean by the grace of God, because I truly believe that Lyft is his mission, and that he called Kim and I to lead it, and we feel very blessed and very grateful. And then 3 years ago, when Kim retired, he called Mr. Sean Noggle, our rock star executive director, who I may call upon if there are questions that I can't answer regarding Lyft. But fast forward 4 months, in January, we had filed with the state of Florida, the Department of Education. We had found a location. We had filed our 501c3, opened a business account, trying to think of all the other things. Health department had gone through all of that. And we opened our doors on January 9th, 2013. And the 4 months are kind of a blur. I think Kim and I are probably still trying to catch up on our sleep. By the way, I'm sorry to say for us that Kim was not able to be here because she is traveling with family, but I hope I make her proud with sharing our story. So anyway, we opened our door January 9th, 2013, almost 10 years next month. And we had one academic program, Lyft Academy, with 17 students. And I am so proud and so humbled to say today we have over 150 learners. We have 3 educational programs and a family resource center. We have our academy. Oh, I missed lesson number 3 way back there. Lesson number 3, a passionate heart can move mountains. So never doubt what you can do, because whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are correct. So that was lesson number 3 after the napkin part. So we're back to January 17th. The doors open 10 years later. We're at 150 students, 150 plus. And as our girls' needs evolved, so did Lift. So after the academy, we started a transition program, a 4-year program. And these are the students that have completed or graduated from high school, but need continued academics. They need life skills training, social skills development, and especially career training, because what we're trying to do is to get them all as independent as possible. So all of our students in the university have an internship in the community, 100%. 100% become employed after they leave the U. Now, what we recognized was sometimes the employment was not full-time. Sometimes it was 8 hours, sometimes 10 hours, sometimes 20 hours. But who really wants to just sit in front of the computer or the TV the rest of the time? And our population of individuals don't have a huge circle of friends. So if they're not employed and they're not at work, then what are they doing? And this was lesson number 4, that every single human being deserves to have purpose and feel valued. So we created micro businesses, which are sustainable employment opportunities, so that our young adults could feel purpose, could feel valued. And we have 3 micro businesses. We have Lift Your Heart, which is like Chip and Joanna Gaines style gifts, wine bags and pillows, charcuterie trays, soap, trying to think what else, candles. It keeps growing, and I'm going to do a shameless plug. Tomorrow we have our holiday market, and so if anybody is interested, I'm going to pass out some brochures, or one of my team members will, and it's all day long tomorrow, and it's a great way to buy some holiday gifts and see our program. Our second program is Lift Your Fork, and it's a catering company. So we have a whole hospitality track in the program, and they have the best cinnamon buns and the best red velvet chocolate chip cookies I've ever had, and they will be there tomorrow. And then we have Lift You Cleaning Crew, which cleans churches and small businesses locally. But I think Lift's greatest accomplishment, what I go to sleep feeling just wonderful about every night, is not just that we built an academic or an educational institution, but we've built a culture of belonging in a community. Whether you're in the academy, or you're in the university transition program, or you're employed by our micro businesses, or you're an alumni, and we have a strong alumni group, all of these individuals feel accepted, feel valued, and have a place to belong. So my final lesson is to always remember neurodiversity may impact or affect the brain's ability to process, but it does not affect the heart's ability to feel. So I know we have some Q&A to get to, so I'm going to wrap up and just say, let's ask some questions, dive deep into some solutions so we can all be better tour guides for our Hollands. So thank you. We're going up here? Okay.
I can't tell you how thankful I am for this wealth of information, and hopefully it's a tool for you all to use in the community. Not every place is a good fit for everyone, but as you're evaluating students with neurodiversity, it's really important to be educated individually about the differences of various disabilities. Because when we think about it just as disabilities, we sort of change our mindset. When we think, to Kelly's point, Ms. Mondela's point, about the person and their contribution, to Dr. Blanchard's point, to understanding, to Dr. Gardner's point, and to really giving support services, to Ms. Bellamy's point, then we have a different picture of how we're supporting these students from when we discover their neural challenges and their neural blessings to when they evolve into the community. So with that, is this mic on or no? Okay. All right. Are there any questions? Any questions for the group? Yes. Thank you. Hi. Yes. Please stand. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you all for your presentations. They were great. So I have a question specifically about the law enforcement training. We in Pinellas County Schools do train our SROs, including the adjacent community SROs, twice a year. And so but we don't, as I understand it, your program is somewhat immersive in that they have the experience of being potentially that individual on the other side. Is that correct? And then if that is, how do law enforcement agencies access that training, which is so critically important?
So we did do pre-COVID a training of all the SROs in Pinellas County. And so I adapt the training to be the time that I have with the audience and to meet their needs. So pre-COVID, we had officers come through this building here. They would train in a large room like this. Then we would go upstairs to the simulation center and we had actors, some of whom were on the spectrum themselves, and we would run scenarios. When we could no longer do hands-on interactive training like that, then we have 25 different virtual reality headsets where they can run through modules where with their eye contact, they can choose how they de-escalate a situation that is a standard call that they would respond to. I adapt it to meet the needs. So if somebody has an hour, it's an hour. If they have 3 hours, it's 3 hours. If we want to bring the virtual reality headsets, great. If they'd rather do in-person scenarios, then we can run through scenarios. Right now, because we don't have actors on staff, it's more that they're reading through scenarios and we're kind of thinking through as a group. The most often that I'm doing the training right now is through the crisis intervention training, the CIT training in Pinellas County, and so I'm part of their standard curriculum. And then again, as different organizations contact me, like you guys did, and we often go out to other places in the country as well. That contact us to go and train their officers. So we're very open to training anyone who's interested. And I really do try and just accommodate the time and the availability and space that you have. But would love to train all the SROs again and talk them through working specifically with students that they might be responding to different concerns within the school setting. Because that's a little bit different than responding to different types of calls that officers respond to on duty.
Are there other questions? Yes, thank you.
The med waiver. I had heard someone speak that we need to have our parents apply for that, and I'm just wanting to know when we would let them know when.
So some parents apply for med waiver when their child is 3 years old, when they're diagnosed. And then when they turn 18, that's plenty of time to make sure that med waiver has been fulfilled. So a lot of parents will come in and say, or support people, caregivers will come in and say, well, we have Social Security. It's not the same thing. It's part of the umbrella under Medicare, but it's something you have to apply for separately. So I would say as soon as you can get a hold of them and tell them about applying for the med waiver, because that pays for services like through McDonald Training Center for adult day training services and things like that. And vocational rehabilitation is separate, but I would say the sooner the better. Like I said, we do find those who've applied when their children are very young have it all set up and ready to go. Otherwise, if they wait until they're ready for services, it's a wait list and it's the government. So it takes a little while and then they get a little frustrated or they have to private pay, which is difficult for everyone. So it's best to put that in their ear as soon as possible.
I would say here, when we do our diagnostic evaluations, that's a standard recommendation on all of our reports is that we encourage the families as soon as possible. And generally those families are 2-3 years old at that time because like you're saying, it does take a really long time to get access to that funding.
Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. I live in Manatee County and been retired ESC teacher for 2 years. My question is, do you ever reach out to other counties and tell them about your program? Because I did a lot of research back when I was going to school and stuff, which was a lot of years ago. But there was no program after students graduated from high school. We have the Haven, and also it just opened the Loveland Center, which I think they started in Venice, and now they're in Bradenton. And I do know that there's certain jobs like Tropicana or Sun Hydraulic that, they train these clients so they can earn money. But as far as like the lift program, things like that, I don't believe there's anything like that in Manatee County.
Um, is it on? Hello? Oh, sorry. Yes, it is. Can you ask me your question again? Is our program in other areas?
Yes. Yeah. Do you reach out to other counties, like in the Tampa Bay area, that you can talk to maybe directors of ESC in different school districts?
Currently, we are on two campuses in Seminole, but we have just purchased the YMCA of Clearwater, and we are expanding our services, and we're going to be able to quadruple in size. We're going to be more centrally located right now. I think why there's not a lot of we're not super visible, and there's not a lot of awareness about Lyft. Historically, we've not done a lot of advertising, a lot of marketing, because we are at capacity and we don't like wait lists. So we've not reached out, but I've got my development director and my community relations manager and my executive director here. So that is something that I know we will plan to do as soon as we move to the new campus in July. But we have maintained a full capacity really without much marketing or anything like that. And the reason that we're buying this campus is because we see the need and we want to have the room and the opportunity to serve more students. So we need advocates like you to share our story and let others know that we are here and we're going to have a lot more space soon.
And Ms. Bellamy, will you add about any outreach?
Thank you. Yes. So McDonald Training Center, like I said, we have a location in Tampa and one out towards Brandon. And we are pretty much at capacity as well. And COVID shut us down for a little bit. We're opening back up and accepting clients that were previous clients back. Transportation is an issue. Yes, we'd love to have more facilities and more areas and grow and expand. It's difficult right now. But if a client can provide their own transportation from a place like Manatee County, we are totally open and welcoming to individuals, because we do continuing education and certificate programs and adult day training and all of those things after high school that you were speaking of.
Thank you very much for being here today. I've learned so much. My questions for you, Mrs. Molando. Can you share how Lyft has been able to provide the appropriate accommodations for your students?
Absolutely. And if there's more information that you hear I'm not providing, I'm going to ask my team to step in. But we have kept our class sizes to a maximum of 10 in the elementary program. We call it the littles, K through 6, 15 in the middles and bigs. And all of our elementary teachers have an assistant. We have a Lyft support plan for every single student. So we look at their needs, we meet with the families, and the teachers meet regularly on what is it that, with the families and each other, what is it that this student needs? And we look at each child truly individually. So I think keeping the class sizes small, having that constant support person in the classroom. Sometimes our classrooms actually have more adults than they do children. We allowed all of the therapists in there, and sometimes, especially in the kindergarten or the little classes, we blend them. So sometimes K1, you'll have one RBT or one ABA for every child. So there's 5 children and there's 5 RBTs and the teacher and the assistant. So really constantly evaluating the students' needs, individual needs, is, I think, one of our greatest gifts that we give to our students.
And how do you secure the funding for that model?
We are, I would say 80%, 85% are on the student empowerment scholarships, previously McKay and Gardner scholarships, and private pay tuition as well. And we have an amazing development director that helps with grants and funding and all of that. But 80 to 85% are on state funded scholarships.
I'm going to double check you.
I'm not fact checking you. That was all good. Good job.
That's how we received it.
So I was going to ask a question about the prevalence rates that I saw. Obviously, it's getting more and more common and widespread. So one of the questions that I've kind of continued to evolve over the past couple of years is just around if that's the prevalence rates with children, then you can kind of retroactively apply that to, that means there's millions of undiagnosed adults walking around.
Well, a little bit. Yeah.
So I wasn't sure, you know, obviously what most of us are working on in here is that prevention piece and early intervention and those types of things, but we see it all the time from an interaction standpoint with parents and people in the community that they have multiple, you know, children with autism or other diagnoses. And so it's kind of, you kind of look at it at the same rate and say, well, is this, are the parents undiagnosed as well? And is there a way that we can help them access better services or get them some other treatments or other services?
So I think we now know that the adult rate is similar to, when we look at the statistics, it's similar to the 1 in 44, 1 in 54, depending on where you look. If we're looking at the numbers from 2000, you know, those individuals were 8 years old at that time. So they're now 20s, 30s, having children of their own. And there are a lot of times where I'm evaluating a child for autism. And when I'm talking to the parents, they're disclosing, you know, as we're talking through these things, as I'm learning more about the autism spectrum, I think I myself am on the autism spectrum. And a lot of times these are individuals who have full-time jobs, who are living independently really successfully. And so to me, I think there's a difference between individuals who are on the spectrum and who have an autism spectrum disorder. Similarly to individuals who have anxiety or depression and who aren't necessarily having a generalized anxiety disorder or a depressive disorder. So I think there's a lot of people who are functioning exceptionally well on the spectrum, but that maybe then those parents are seeking services for different ways that it is impacting their mental health and their coping. And so I think we try and facilitate and support those parents as best we can when they're kind of coming to a realization that perhaps they themselves are on the spectrum, and then maybe their child is showing more signs and symptoms than what they did, or maybe they went unidentified. I think we can all think of individuals that we went through school with who were a little quirky or different, and at that time the spectrum wasn't as wide, and so they probably weren't necessarily diagnosed, but we all knew that socially there was something just a little different about that individual. And so I think that just approaching those individuals with acceptance and grace and helping them to navigate getting whatever support that they may need or may not need to help them feel supported is really what's the important key kind of outcome for that, is just making sure that, to me, the value of the diagnosis or the awareness is really that it gets you access to services that help you to feel supported.
I think there was one other question in the back. We'll take 2 more before we wrap up.
In regards to the McDonald's Training Center, I just wondered what population do you serve?
So as long as the individual has graduated from high school, whether that's through a GED or, I know it's not called a special diploma anymore, there's another word for it, but as long as they're finished with high school and are 18, we provide services for any individual through whatever age. We have some folks in their 70s who attend for social reasons and to just get out. And so we have a variety. It's not just autism. This is about autism, I know, but we do serve other disabilities as well.
Thank you.
Any other final questions? Well, I'm going to ask each of you all to wrap up with something you want to share. And being mindful, of course, that we have this very gifted audience here who are highly educated, but we also are speaking to the donor's intent, being especially grateful for their intent to educate the community at large that may not have the vast understanding of autism. If you all will just share, and we'll just start with Ms. Bellamy and come on down to Ms. Mandela.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be here again, and thank you to the donors. And we really appreciate being included on this. We are not the only entity that serves individuals with disabilities with adult day training. We request that when people come in for tours that they explore the different areas that they can go to. But we do have, and we're trying to grow, we have technology classes, environmental services, logistics, as well as your ADT classes for those individuals. So it's just, it's nice to be here. I was an elementary school teacher for 30 years. This is off just regular elementary, but I was so happy to have the opportunity after I retired from that to be able to get into a different field and serve other people and just be truly fulfilled again at McDonald Training Center. So I want to just thank you again and appreciate you having us here as a representative for individuals with autism. Thank you.
I think my go-to takeaway from today is just that opportunities like this for us all to communicate with one another and learn more about the services that are available locally are so important to make sure that we are letting families and children know about different ways and adults that they can get access to services and make friends and find connections in the community that are really meaningful for them. And so I thank everyone for being here, but also if you weren't comfortable asking a question or speaking up, if you want to come and talk afterwards, please do come up. I'd love to hear about the things that you're doing as well, because the information is only as good as us knowing it to be able to share it with individuals who are on the spectrum or who have needs. And so if there's anything that you're doing that you think is important for us to know about that I can provide for recommendations to families and patients as well, please do approach me afterwards, because it's really important for us to be able to share this information locally with the families and the people that we serve.
And I'm going to agree and follow up with Dr. Gardner that it is important for all of us to connect and communicate on this topic, because as we see the number of children and adults diagnosed with autism is on the rise, we need to become more educated and more aware and better advocates in society. And what better time than us focusing now as a society on DE&I. We talk about diversity, equity, inclusion. We talk about cultural diversity, religious diversity, gender diversity. Let's talk about neurodiversity, and that includes autism. So thank you for letting me speak today too.
Please. So as we close, I just want to say sincere thank you to each of you all for taking time early this morning, but most importantly to what you're creating to live past this session today. This is the website that Dr. Sue Blanchard created that we want to make sure, along with our tech lead here, our graphic designer who is graduating from USF. I have to give him a shout out this weekend. But he did, along with Sue, he did this wonderful repository of information. You can scroll down, Sam. And if you feel the need to share, it is all student driven. You see one of the sessions with Dr. Gardner up there, along with talks from Haley Moss, who is the first identified autistic person with who graduated from Florida schools and is a member of the Florida Bar. And so she talks, she works for the Florida Bar currently and talks about ableism and challenges. And if you toggle to any of those icons up there, you can just hit any one, Sam. It'll give you more information that our students did along with Dr. Blanchard. With that, I'll just say thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for what you do. And thank you for caring enough to carry the message on.